You want to know what really happened when John Cena walked into that backstage area after his retirement announcement? Let me tell you something that's going to make your blood absolutely boil. Roman Reigns, the so-called tribal chief, the man who claims to respect legacy and tradition, did something so disrespectful, so completely out of line to John Cena that multiple WWE veterans had to physically intervene to prevent an all-out brawl. And the worst part? WWE is trying to bury this story. They are scrubbing footage, they are threatening talent with fines if they talk, and they are hoping you, the fans who made both of these men into legends, just forget it ever happened. Well, I'm not going to let that happen. What I'm about to expose will change how you see Roman Reigns forever, and it'll make you question whether WWE actually cares about honoring their greatest performers or if it's all just corporate PR nonsense. Before I reveal the explosive details of what went down between Cena and Roman, I need you to do something for me right now. Drop a comment and tell me, are you Team Cena or Team Roman? Because after you hear what I'm about to tell you, I guarantee your answer might change, and this comment section is about to become a war zone. Hit that like button if you think John Cena deserves better treatment, and smash that subscribe button because Wrestling Zone 1 is the only place giving you the real story that WWE doesn't want you to know. Let's set the stage. Saturday night's main event. The event that brought back nostalgia, that reminded us why we fell in love with wrestling in the first place. John Cena, in what was supposed to be a celebration of his legendary career, announced his retirement tour. The arena exploded. Grown men were crying. Kids were holding up their never give up signs. This was supposed to be John Cena's moment. 16-time world champion. The face of WWE for 2 decades. The man who carried the company through its darkest periods. The guy who granted more Make-A-Wish wishes than any human being in history. This was his night. His announcement. His moment to bask in the adoration of millions of fans who grew up watching him overcome impossible odds. But Roman Reigns couldn't let that happen. No, the tribal chief had to make it about himself, and what happened backstage was so much worse than anything you saw on camera. Here's what WWE showed you. Roman came out, there was tension, they had their stare down, and it was all very dramatic and sports entertainment-ish. Cool moment, right? Great television. But that's the PG version. That's the sanitized, corporate-approved, carefully scripted version designed to sell you on a future WrestleMania match. What happened when those cameras stopped rolling and they went through that curtain is a completely different story, and it's a story that has the entire WWE locker room choosing sides. Multiple sources, and I'm talking about people who were literally standing 10 feet away from this confrontation, have confirmed that the moment Cena walked backstage after his emotional announcement, Roman was waiting for him. Not to congratulate him, not to show respect, not to acknowledge the magnitude of what Cena just did. Roman was there to confront him, to make sure that everyone in that building knew that the tribal chief doesn't take a backseat to anyone, not even John Cena on his retirement announcement night. Quick question for the comments, who had the better career, Cena or Roman? Answer honestly. According to eyewitnesses, Roman approached Cena with members of the bloodline flanking him because apparently, the tribal chief needs an entourage even for a backstage conversation. The first words out of Roman's mouth? That announcement should have gone through me first. Let that sink in. Should have gone through him first. As if Roman Reigns has veto power over when a WWE legend decides to announce his retirement. As if John Cena, who was main eventing WrestleManias when Roman was still learning how to cut a promo, needs permission from anyone about how to handle his own career. Cena, to his credit, didn't immediately escalate. Sources say he kept his composure, responded with something along the lines of "This has nothing to do with you, Joe," using Roman's real name, which in wrestling culture is the ultimate sign of dropping kayfabe and getting real. But Roman wasn't backing down. He allegedly continued, saying that Cena coming back for a retirement tour was going to overshadow the current era and that the business has moved on from the Cena era. Can you believe the disrespect? John Cena, who put Roman over clean at No Mercy 2017, who has done nothing but praise Roman's work in interviews, who has been nothing but professional and supportive of the new generation, and this is how Roman responds. By trying to diminish Cena's legacy on the night he announces his retirement. But it gets worse. So much worse. Roman allegedly told Cena that if this retirement tour was going to happen, it needed to end with the tribal chief standing tall at WrestleMania. Not a request, not a suggestion, a demand. Roman essentially tried to book his own WrestleMania main event right there in the backstage area, telling a legend how his final match should go, assuming he'd be the one to retire John Cena, and making it clear that there was no other acceptable option in his mind. Now, here's where things got heated. Cena, who has always been known for his professionalism and calm demeanor, apparently snapped. Witnesses say he stepped directly into Roman's personal space, and for those who know how wrestling locker rooms work, that's the international signal for "we're about to have a serious problem." Cena allegedly told Roman that he hadn't earned the right to make demands, that he wouldn't have a career without the foundation Cena and others built, and that Roman's inflated ego was exactly what's wrong with WWE today. Boom. Shots fired. The gloves came off. And Roman's response? He allegedly shoved Cena. Shoved him. Put his hands on a man who's about to embark on his retirement tour, a man who's given everything to this business, a man who's beloved by millions. Roman Reigns put his hands on John Cena in a hostile manner, and suddenly, the backstage area turned into absolute chaos. Drop a comment, would you pay to see Cena vs Roman in a real fight? According to multiple people who were present, it took Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, and surprisingly LA Knight to step between them before this turned into a legitimate physical altercation. Can you imagine? 3 main event level stars having to play peacemaker because Roman Reigns couldn't control his ego for 5 minutes. Randy, Cena's longtime friend and someone who knows both men well, allegedly pulled Cena back while telling Roman he was way out of line. Kevin Owens, who's had his own issues with Roman over the years, reportedly told the tribal chief that he was embarrassing himself. And LA Knight, the rising star who wasn't even involved, felt compelled to step in because the situation was getting that volatile. The Bloodline members, Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso, were allegedly trying to pull Roman away, but Roman kept pointing at Cena, kept talking, kept making it clear that he felt disrespected by Cena's announcement somehow stealing his spotlight. Because that's what this was really about. Not respect, not tradition, not honoring a legend. This was about Roman Reigns feeling like John Cena announcing his retirement tour was taking attention away from the tribal chief's reign at the top of WWE. Here's what makes this even more infuriating. Do you know what John Cena was doing before this confrontation? He was in his locker room, emotional, processing the weight of what he'd just announced. This wasn't just another promo for Cena. This was him publicly acknowledging that his body can't do this anymore, that Father Time is undefeated, that the career he's dedicated his entire adult life to is coming to an end. Multiple people saw Cena sitting alone, visibly emotional, coming to terms with the fact that he only has a limited number of matches left before he hangs up his boots forever. And Roman couldn't even give him that moment. Couldn't let Cena have 30 minutes of private reflection before turning it into a confrontation about himself. That's not tribal chief behavior. That's insecure behavior. That's the behavior of someone who's so consumed with being the guy that he can't handle anyone else receiving positive attention for even a single segment. Now, WWE officials got involved quickly. Triple H himself reportedly came into the area and shut everything down, taking Roman into a private office for what sources describe as a heated conversation. Paul Heyman was apparently sweating bullets, trying to spin the situation, trying to explain Roman's perspective, but from what I'm hearing, even Heyman knew Roman had crossed a major line. Let me ask you this, when did Roman Reigns become so insecure that he can't let other stars have their moments? Here's the thing about WWE's backstage culture that casual fans don't understand. There's an unwritten code. When someone announces their retirement, when someone is having their moment, you let them have it. You congratulate them. You show respect. You acknowledge their contributions to the business. You don't make it about yourself. This isn't just common courtesy, it's wrestling tradition going back decades. You think when Stone Cold Steve Austin was having his moments, The Rock was in the back trying to steal his thunder? You think when The Undertaker was getting his tributes, John Cena was demanding to be part of the story? No, because true legends understand that the business is bigger than any one person's ego. But Roman Reigns? He apparently didn't get that memo. Or maybe he did and just doesn't care. Maybe his 4-year stranglehold on the top of WWE has warped his perspective so much that he genuinely believes the entire wrestling world should revolve around him and his storylines. Maybe he's bought into his own hype so completely that he can't fathom a scenario where he's not the center of attention. What's even more disturbing is how WWE is handling this. Instead of addressing Roman's behavior, instead of using this as a teaching moment about respecting your elders and honoring the business, they are trying to cover it up. Talent have been warned not to discuss what happened. Social media mentions are being monitored. WWE's PR team is in overdrive trying to control the narrative and make sure this story doesn't leak to mainstream media. Why? Because Roman Reigns is their guy. He's the chosen one. He's the face of the company moving forward. They've invested years into building him up, and they can't afford for the public to see him as anything other than the respectful, dominant champion they've portrayed him as. Never mind that behind the scenes, multiple wrestlers have complained about Roman's attitude. Never mind that producers have expressed frustration with his demands. Never mind that legends have questioned whether Roman truly understands and respects wrestling tradition. WWE has decided that protecting Roman's image is more important than acknowledging the reality of what happened. And that should make every single wrestling fan absolutely furious. Comment below, should WWE discipline Roman for this backstage incident? Let's talk about what this means for John Cena's retirement tour. This was supposed to be a year-long celebration, a victory lap for one of the greatest to ever lace up boots. Cena deserves to go out on his own terms, having dream matches with people he never got to face, revisiting classic rivalries, and giving fans around the world the chance to say thank you for 20 years of unforgettable moments. But now there's this dark cloud hanging over everything. Now every Cena appearance will have fans wondering if Roman's going to interfere or cause problems. Now every match announcement will have people speculating whether WWE is going to force Cena into a WrestleMania match with Roman that he might not even want. Because let's be real, after this backstage confrontation, do you think John Cena wants to put Roman over in his retirement match? Do you think he wants to give Roman Reigns the honor of being the man who retired John Cena after Roman showed him such blatant disrespect? I wouldn't. If I were Cena, I'd be on the phone with Triple H right now saying, find me literally anyone else for WrestleMania, because I'm not giving Roman that moment. Cena could have an incredible match with Gunther. He could do a dream match with Cody Rhodes. He could have won Final Classic with Randy Orton. He could pass the torch to someone like LA Knight or Austin Theory who would actually appreciate the magnitude of that moment. But Roman? After this, Roman doesn't deserve to be John Cena's last match. And you want to know what the most frustrating part of all this is? Roman will probably get exactly what he wants anyway. Because WWE has spent 4 years telling us that Roman Reigns always wins, that the tribal chief always gets his way, that everyone eventually acknowledges him. They've booked him so dominantly for so long that they've created a monster, not the character, the actual person, who believes he's entitled to whatever he demands. This is what happens when you give one person all the power 4 years on end. This is what happens when you never tell your top star no. This is what happens when you build your entire company around one individual to the point where they think they are bigger than legends, bigger than tradition, bigger than the business itself. Here's a reality check for Roman Reigns. John Cena was selling out arenas and main eventing WrestleManias when you were still trying to get over as a member of the Shield. John Cena carried WWE through the darkest period in company history when they lost half their audience after the Attitude Era ended. John Cena became a mainstream celebrity and brought eyes to WWE that hadn't watched wrestling in decades. John Cena's merchandise sales still rival yours despite him barely appearing on television. John Cena is a cultural icon whose impact on professional wrestling will be studied and celebrated long after both of you are gone. So for Roman to treat Cena with anything less than the utmost respect is not only unprofessional, it's delusional. It shows a fundamental misunderstanding of his place in wrestling history. Roman Reigns is having a great run. He's been an excellent champion. His heel work has been phenomenal. But he's not John Cena. Not in terms of impact, not in terms of longevity, and certainly not in terms of earning the right to dictate how legends conduct their retirement tours. Real talk in the comments, is Roman Reigns the most overrated wrestler in WWE history? Let's examine what happened in the days following this incident, because the ripple effects are still being felt throughout WWE. Several veterans approached Cena privately to apologize for Roman's behavior and to express support for however Cena wants to handle his retirement tour. The Miz, who's known Cena for nearly 2 decades, reportedly told him that the entire locker room knows Roman was wrong. Rey Mysterio, another legend, apparently had a long conversation with Cena about respecting the business and how the new generation sometimes forgets where they came from. But here's what's really telling. According to sources, younger wrestlers in the locker room are split. Some think Roman had every right to protect his position at the top of the card. Others think Roman made himself look petty and insecure. This division is creating tension in the backstage environment that WWE definitely doesn't need right now, especially with AEW always ready to poach disgruntled talent. Triple H allegedly had individual meetings with both Cena and Roman in the days after Saturday night's main event. With Cena, it was reportedly an apologetic conversation where Hunter acknowledged that Roman was out of line and assured Cena that his retirement tour would be handled with the respect and dignity it deserves. Hunter apparently told Cena he has complete creative control over his final year and that no decisions will be made without Cena's approval, which is exactly how it should be. But with Roman, that conversation was apparently far more confrontational. Triple H, to his credit, didn't back down from addressing the situation head-on. He allegedly told Roman that his behavior was unacceptable, that he embarrassed himself and the company, and that there are lines you don't cross, even if you're the champion. Hunter reportedly reminded Roman that plenty of people helped him get to where he is and that disrespecting those who came before him makes him look ungrateful and entitled. Roman's response? Sources say he defended his actions, claiming he was protecting the business and making sure the current product doesn't get overshadowed by the past. He allegedly argued that Cena should have coordinated his announcement with the current champions and main event talent to ensure it didn't hurt the momentum of ongoing storylines. Can you believe that logic? As if John Cena announcing his retirement is somehow damaging to Roman's championship reign. As if the two things can't coexist. As if WWE can't honor its past while building its future. This is the problem with Roman's mentality. He sees everything as a zero-sum game. If someone else is getting attention, that means he's getting less attention, and that's unacceptable to him. He can't grasp the concept that celebrating John Cena's legendary career actually helps the current product by reminding people why WWE matters in the first place. Cena's retirement tour will bring lapsed fans back to the product. It'll generate mainstream media coverage. It'll boost ticket sales and merchandise revenue. All things that benefit everyone on the roster, including Roman Reigns. But Roman can't see past his own ego to recognize that sometimes, the best thing you can do for your own career is to step back and let someone else have the spotlight. Some of the most iconic moments in wrestling history came from established stars putting over new talent or supporting their peers' big moments without trying to steal focus. That's how you become a true legend, not by demanding to be the center of attention every single second, but by understanding when it's appropriate to share the stage. Here's a question that needs to be asked: has Roman's 4-year championship reign done more harm than good? Think about it objectively. Yes, Roman's been a consistent draw. Yes, he's had some incredible matches. Yes, his heel character work has been excellent. But at what cost? The roster is stale because everyone knows Roman's going to win eventually. Younger talent can't break through because all roads lead back to Roman. Fans are burned out on the same storylines and the same "acknowledge me" promos week after week. And now, we're seeing that Roman's dominance has created an environment where he feels entitled to disrespect legends and make demands that he hasn't earned the right to make. Maybe, just maybe, WWE should have pulled the trigger on ending Roman's reign a long time ago. Maybe giving one person all the power for 4 years straight creates exactly the kind of backstage problems we're seeing now. Maybe the tribal chief character has become so all-consuming that Paul Oliveira, the real person behind Roman Reigns, has lost perspective on what's appropriate and what crosses the line. Former WWE writers have anonymously stated that Roman has significant creative influence over his storylines and often rejects ideas he doesn't like. He allegedly has approval over who he works with, how matches are structured, and how his character is portrayed. That's an unprecedented level of control for a full-time active wrestler in the modern era. Even John Cena at the peak of his power didn't have that much influence over creative decisions. And when you give someone that much power without checks and balances, is it any surprise that they start believing they are untouchable? Is it any surprise that they think they can confront legends backstage and face no consequences? Is it any surprise that their ego grows to the point where they think they should have a say in how other people's careers end? This is the monster WWE created. They built Roman up so high, protected him so thoroughly, and gave him so much control that he now thinks he runs the show. And the scary part? He kind of does. WWE is so invested in the tribal chief character, so dependent on Roman Reigns being their top star, that they can't afford to truly discipline him even when he's blatantly in the wrong. Because what if Roman gets angry and walks out? What if he demands his release? What if he decides to sit at home until his contract expires and then signs with AEW? WWE has handcuffed themselves by making one wrestler so important that he's essentially bigger than the company itself. And that's a dangerous position to be in, as evidenced by what happened with John Cena backstage. Drop a comment: would you rather see Cena vs Gunther or Cena vs Roman at WrestleMania? Let's talk about the broader implications of this situation for WWE's locker room culture. If Roman can disrespect John Cena without significant consequences, what message does that send to everyone else? It tells mid-card wrestlers that if you're important enough, you can act however you want. It tells young talent that respecting veterans is optional if you're the champion. It tells legends that their contributions don't matter as much as the current corporate priorities. This is toxic. This is how you create a backstage environment where people don't want to work. This is how you lose the locker room's respect. And don't think for a second that other wrestling companies aren't watching this situation closely. AEW would love to use this as evidence that WWE doesn't value or respect their talent. New Japan could point to this as why American wrestling culture is problematic. Even NXT wrestlers might think twice about wanting to move up to the main roster if this is the kind of behavior that's tolerated at the top. Multiple wrestlers have privately expressed that they are disappointed in how WWE handled the situation. The general consensus seems to be that Roman should have faced some kind of disciplinary action, whether that's a fine, a suspension, or at minimum a public acknowledgement that his behavior was inappropriate. But WWE has done none of those things. They've swept it under the rug, hoped it would go away, and continued pushing Roman as their untouchable champion. That sends a clear message: if you're important enough to WWE's bottom line, the rules don't apply to you. And that's a terrible precedent to set in any workplace, but especially in professional wrestling where egos are already inflated and tensions run high due to the competitive nature of the business. Here's something else that's been overlooked in all of this. What does this mean for Paul Heyman? The wise man has been Roman's advocate, his mouthpiece, and his strategic advisor for years. Heyman is supposed to be the wise veteran who keeps Roman grounded, who helps him navigate the political waters of WWE, who ensures the tribal chief conducts himself appropriately. But where was Heyman when Roman was confronting Cena backstage? Where was the counsel to maybe not disrespect one of the greatest wrestlers of all time on the night of his retirement announcement? Sources indicate that Heyman tried to de-escalate the situation once it started, but by then it was too late. Some people backstage are questioning whether Heyman has lost his influence over Roman, whether the student has surpassed the teacher to the point where he no longer listens to advice. If that's true, it's concerning, because Heyman's political acumen and industry knowledge have been crucial in helping Roman navigate his path to the top. Without that guidance, Roman could make even more errors in judgment that damage his reputation and relationships within WWE. The wrestling industry is small. Reputations matter. How you treat people matters. John Cena could very easily make a few phone calls to people in positions of power and make Roman's life difficult if he wanted to. Cena has relationships with Hollywood executives, with corporate sponsors, with media outlets. He could poison the well for Roman's post-WWE career aspirations if he felt vindictive about this situation. Now, I don't think Cena would do that. He's too professional and too focused on his own legacy. But the point is that disrespecting people who have the kind of influence Cena has is just stupid. It's short-sighted. It's the kind of mistake that can haunt you for years. Real question: do you think Cena should use his influence to hold Roman accountable? Let's examine what WWE's ideal scenario probably is moving forward. They want Cena versus Roman at WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. They want it to be Cena's final match. They want Roman to win, cementing his legacy as the man who retired John Cena. They want the build to be respectful and emotional, generating massive buy rates and mainstream coverage. They want both men to put their backstage issues aside and deliver a classic match that people talk about for decades. But here's the problem: that scenario requires John Cena to be willing to forgive and forget what happened. It requires Cena to put WWE's corporate interests above his personal feelings. It requires him to trust that Roman will be professional during the build and won't try to bury him or diminish his legacy in promos. After what happened backstage at Saturday night's main event, can anyone really expect Cena to just move past it for the sake of WWE's WrestleMania plans? I wouldn't blame Cena one bit if he refused to work with Roman. I wouldn't blame him if he demanded a different opponent for his final match. I wouldn't blame him if he used whatever creative control he has to ensure that his retirement tour doesn't involve doing business with someone who showed him such profound disrespect. And if Cena does refuse to face Roman at WrestleMania, WWE is in a massive bind. They've built their entire WrestleMania plan around Cena versus Roman. They've teased it on television. Fans are expecting it. The narrative makes sense. But if the match can't happen because Roman burned that bridge with his backstage behavior, WWE has no one to blame but themselves for tolerating and enabling Roman's ego for all these years. This is a self-inflicted wound. WWE created this situation by giving Roman unchecked power and influence. They normalized his sense of entitlement. They allowed him to believe he's bigger than the business itself. And now they are facing the consequences of that decision in the form of one of their all-time legends potentially refusing to work with their current top star. The irony is beautiful in a tragic way. WWE spent 4 years telling us that everyone must acknowledge Roman Reigns. But the one person whose acknowledgement matters most, John Cena, might refuse to give it to him. And there's not a damn thing Roman or WWE can do about it, because John Cena has earned the right to make those decisions for himself. So where does this leave us? We've got John Cena embarking on a retirement tour that should be a celebration but is now overshadowed by backstage drama. We've got Roman Reigns continuing his championship reign with a new layer of controversy surrounding his character both on screen and off. We've got WWE trying to manage a situation they created through years of poor decision making. And we've got a WrestleMania main event that might not happen because one man's ego got the better of him at exactly the wrong moment. Final question for the comments: if you were John Cena, would you forgive Roman and face him at WrestleMania? Here's my prediction of how this plays out. WWE will do everything in their power to smooth things over. They'll have mediators talk to both Cena and Roman. They'll probably script some kind of on-screen acknowledgement of tension that plays into the WrestleMania build. They'll try to turn this real-life heat into money by incorporating it into the storyline. And ultimately, they'll convince Cena that having his retirement match against the top star in the company is the right way to go out, regardless of personal feelings. But the damage is done. The relationship between Cena and Roman is forever altered. The respect that might have existed is gone. And everyone in the wrestling world now knows that Roman Reigns cares more about his own position than he does about honoring the legends who paved the way for him to succeed. This story isn't over, not by a long shot. As Cena's retirement tour continues throughout 2025, we're going to see more developments, more tension, and probably more confrontations. The wrestling world is watching, the fans are watching, and Roman Reigns better hope that when all is said and done, his legacy isn't defined by the moment he disrespected John Cena on what should have been one of the most important nights of Cena's career. Hit that like button if you think Roman was completely out of line. Subscribe to Wrestling Zone 1 for more content exposing what WWE doesn't want you to know. And most importantly, tell me in the comments, how would you handle this situation if you were running WWE? Because right now, they've got a massive problem with no easy solutions, and it's entirely their own fault. The tribal chief wanted to make sure everyone acknowledges him. Well, congratulations Roman, everyone's acknowledging that you screwed up big time. And that's not the legacy you want attached to your name when the history books are written.